I want you to meet someone who did everything right. At 28, he earns $65,000 a year. He works hard, delivers results, gets noticed. At 31, he gets promoted. His salary jumps to $82,000. He feels genuinely wealthy for about 3 weeks. Then life adjusts. He moves to a slightly nicer apartment. He upgrades his car. He starts going to better restaurants. Nothing dramatic, just small, reasonable upgrades that feel entirely justified by the new income. At 35, another promotion, $104,000. The feeling of financial arrival lasts maybe a month this time. He buys a house, a good one, in a good neighborhood, with a mortgage that feels manageable on his new salary. He furnishes it properly. He takes a real vacation for the first time. He gets a second car. His wife works too, so the household income is higher still. They feel like they have made it. At 39, he earns $127,000. His household income with his partner approaches $200,000. By every visible measure, this person is succeeding. The career trajectory is real. The income growth is real. The promotions were earned. The lifestyle looks like success from every direction. And yet, at 39, with a household income approaching $200,000, he has $23,000 in savings. His retirement account has $67,000 in it, less than 1 year of his current salary. His mortgage has 5 years of payments behind it with minimal extra equity built. He carries a car payment, 2 actually. And every month, despite earning more than he ever imagined he would earn at 28, he feels the same low-grade financial pressure he felt at 28, the same mild anxiety about whether the numbers will work out this month, the same sense that he should be further ahead than this. The income nearly doubled in 11 years. The financial anxiety did not change. My name is Tom, and this is Tom Explains Money. And what I am about to walk you through is the specific mechanism that consumed every raise this person ever received before it could become wealth. It has a name. It is called lifestyle creep, and it is the most effective wealth prevention system ever built because it does not feel like a trap while it is operating. It feels like progress. Here is what makes lifestyle creep different from every other financial trap I have described on this channel. The car payment trap and the mortgage payoff trap both operate through specific financial products with identifiable costs. You can calculate the damage. You can point to a line item and say, that is where the money went. Lifestyle creep does not work that way. It operates across dozens of small decisions simultaneously. No single decision looks wrong. Every individual upgrade is justifiable. The nicer apartment is reasonable given the new income. The better car is reasonable given the new income. The restaurant upgrade is reasonable given the new income. The premium gym membership, the upgraded phone plan, the business class upgrade on the long flight, the private school consideration, the wine that costs $40 instead of $12. Each one is reasonable. The sum of them is catastrophic. The anchor concept I want you to hold through this entire video is what I call baseline drift. Baseline drift is the process by which every income increase gets absorbed into a new, higher definition of normal. The $65,000 lifestyle felt tight but manageable. The $127,000 lifestyle also feels tight but manageable. The baseline drifted upward to consume every raise before it could become savings or investment. The income grew. The gap between income and expenses stayed roughly constant. And because the gap stayed constant, wealth did not accumulate at the rate the income growth suggested it should. Baseline drift is not a character flaw. It is a completely predictable response to income growth in an environment specifically designed to capture that growth before you can redirect it. Every industry that sells to you knows when you got a raise before you have finished celebrating it. They are ready for the upgrade. They have been waiting for it. Now let me walk you through the 4 traps embedded inside lifestyle creep. Trap 1. The invisible upgrade. When Tom received his promotion to $82,000, his monthly take-home pay increased by approximately $1,100 per month after tax. That is real money. That is $1,100 every month that did not exist before. Here is what happened to it. The new apartment cost $280 more per month than the old one. The car upgrade cost $340 more per month, including the higher insurance premium. The restaurant and food upgrades cost roughly $190 more per month on average across the year. The subscription upgrades, better streaming package, premium Spotify, upgraded phone plan, cost $85 more per month. That is $895 in new monthly expenses. The remaining $205 of the raise was absorbed into general spending drift over the following 6 months. The raise arrived. $1,100 a month. Every dollar of it found a destination before the end of the first year. Not through one dramatic decision, through 11 small ones that each felt entirely reasonable in the moment. This is the invisible upgrade. The raise does not feel like it gets spent. It feels like it gets used to live appropriately for someone at this income level. And therein lies the trap. Because appropriately is not a fixed standard. It is a standard that rises in perfect lockstep with income, consuming every dollar of growth before it can compound. At $65,000, a 2-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood was appropriate. At $82,000, that same apartment suddenly felt slightly below what was appropriate. Nothing about the apartment changed. The income changed, and the definition of appropriate changed with it. The invisible upgrade is not one decision. It is a continuous, automatic recalibration of what feels normal, what feels like enough, what feels like the right level for someone earning what you now earn. And it runs without your permission or your awareness, absorbing every raise you ever receive unless you deliberately interrupt it. Trap 2. The social calibration trap. Tom's income grew, but something else grew with it that is harder to see. His peer group changed. At 28, his social environment included people earning $55,000 to $75,000. Their spending habits, their vacation choices, their restaurant preferences, their car choices formed the invisible baseline that Tom's own spending unconsciously tracked. By 35, Tom's peer group had shifted. The people around him at work, at social events, in his neighborhood, were earning $90,000 to $150,000. Their spending habits became the new invisible baseline. The vacation that felt like a splurge at 28 was now the baseline expectation of the social environment Tom inhabited. This is the social calibration trap. Your spending does not calibrate to your income. It calibrates to your peer group's income. And as income grows, peer groups tend to shift upward, pulling spending with them in ways that feel like normal social participation rather than financial choices. The person who earned $65,000 and lived among $65,000 earners built savings more easily than the person who earns $127,000 and lives among $200,000 earners. Not because the $65,000 earner was more disciplined, because the social baseline around them was lower and the invisible pressure to match it was weaker. James is Tom's colleague. Same company, similar role, similar income trajectory. But James made one different decision at 31 when his first major raise arrived. He decided not to move. Same apartment, same car for another 3 years, same social spending habits he had cultivated at $65,000. While Tom's baseline drifted upward, consuming every raise, James directed the difference between his old lifestyle cost and his new income into an index fund on the first of every month. By 39, James earns $118,000, slightly less than Tom, but James has $214,000 in invested assets. Tom has $23,000 in savings and $67,000 in retirement accounts. Same industry, similar incomes, the same 8 years. The gap between them is not talent or income. It is the decision one of them made to not let the baseline drift. Trap 3. The subscription accumulation trap. This trap is the quietest of the four because each individual piece is so small. A $15 streaming service is not a financial decision. A $12 premium app subscription is not a financial decision. A $9 upgraded cloud storage plan is not a financial decision. But here is what happens across a decade of income growth. At $65,000, Tom had 4 subscriptions totaling $47 per month. At $82,000, he added 3 more and upgraded 2 existing ones. Total $89 per month. At $104,000, 3 more additions and another round of upgrades. Total $143 per month. At $127,000, the count has grown to $218 per month across 19 active subscriptions, 4 of which he does not use regularly and 2 of which he has forgotten exist. $218 per month in subscriptions. That is $2,616 per year. Over 10 years, at a conservative investment return of 8%, that $218 per month would have grown to $39,000 in invested assets. The subscription accumulation trap is lifestyle creep in its purest form. Each individual decision is so small it never triggers the mental process of real financial evaluation. There is no moment of sitting across from a salesperson, no significant document to sign, no obvious financial commitment being made. Just a small, recurring charge that gets added and never removed because removing it requires an active decision, and adding it required only a passive one.
The passive decision and the active decision are not equal. Every subscription you have was added passively. It was easy. Removing it requires active effort. It is hard. This asymmetry is designed into the subscription model deliberately. The friction is intentional. Your $218 per month in subscriptions is not an accident. It is the predictable outcome of a system designed to accumulate recurring charges from you and make removal as effortful as possible. Trap 4. The identity spending trap. This is the one that makes lifestyle creep genuinely difficult to reverse, even after you understand it. Because by the time most people recognize what has happened, the lifestyle is no longer just a collection of spending decisions. It is an identity. At $127,000, Tom does not feel like he is overspending. He feels like he is living appropriately for a person at his income and career stage. The business class upgrade on the long flight is not a luxury. It is what a professional at his level does. The private school consideration is not an extravagance. It is what a responsible parent at his income level thinks about. The wine list at the restaurant is not indulgent. It is the normal choice for someone who has built the career he has built. The spending is no longer separate from the self. It is the self. And this is why conversations about cutting back feel so threatening. The financial advisor who suggests moving to a less expensive neighborhood is not making a financial suggestion. They are suggesting a change in identity. The spouse who proposes downgrading the car is not proposing a practical financial decision. They are proposing a reduction in who they are. This is the identity spending trap. When spending becomes identity, the cost of cutting back is not measured in dollars. It is measured in self-perception. And self-perception is one of the most powerful forces in human decision-making. Powerful enough to override financial logic indefinitely. The person who earns $127,000 and spends $124,000 is not making financial decisions. They are making identity maintenance decisions. The spending is not a choice. It is a requirement of the person they have decided they are. By the way, if this video is landing, please subscribe. The algorithm does not surface content that challenges comfortable financial narratives unless viewers signal it matters. Now, before I close, I want to give you the honest version of when lifestyle upgrades are genuinely correct, because fair accounting matters. Some lifestyle upgrades are real investments. Moving to a better neighborhood to access better schools is a legitimate decision with long-term value. Upgrading your work wardrobe when a new role genuinely requires it has real career value. Spending more on food quality as income allows it has measurable health value. These are not lifestyle creep. They are deliberate, evaluated upgrades with real returns. The difference between a legitimate lifestyle upgrade and lifestyle creep is evaluation. Did you consciously decide to spend more in this category and redirect less from somewhere else? Or did the spending simply appear as income grew, without a deliberate choice being made? Conscious, evaluated lifestyle improvement is not a trap. Unconscious, automatic baseline drift is. Here are 3 specific things to do this week to interrupt baseline drift before your next raise arrives. First, run a full subscription audit this week. Open your last 2 bank statements. List every recurring charge, every single one. Write the annual cost beside each one. Add them up. The total will be higher than you expect. Cancel every subscription you have not actively used in the last 30 days. Do it now, not next month. Second, before your next raise arrives, decide what percentage of it you will redirect to investment before it touches your checking account. The number I would suggest is 50%. If you get a $400 per month raise after tax, redirect $200 per month to automatic investment on the day the new salary begins. The other $200 can drift, but the first $200 never reaches your baseline. It goes directly into the index fund before the upgrade decisions begin. Third, identify one current lifestyle spending category where you are spending at your current income level rather than at a level that actually produces value proportional to the cost. Not everything needs to be cut, but one deliberate downgrade per income level creates the habit of conscious evaluation that prevents automatic baseline drift from consuming everything. Tom received 4 raises across 11 years. Each one felt like a rival. Each one was consumed within 18 months by a baseline that drifted upward to meet it. At 39, with an income that his 28-year-old self would have considered genuinely wealthy, he has $23,000 in savings and the same financial anxiety he started with. James received similar raises. He made one different decision at 31. He chose not to let the baseline move. He redirected the difference between his old lifestyle cost and his new income into assets that compounded quietly for 8 years. At 39, he has $214,000 in invested assets, no car payment, a smaller home than Tom's, and no financial anxiety at all. Not because James earned more, because James let the baseline drift in only one direction, upward in net worth while staying flat in lifestyle cost. The raise is not the reward. The raise is the raw material. What you build with it depends entirely on whether you let it drift into a higher baseline or redirect it into a compounding asset before the baseline has a chance to absorb it. Most people let the baseline absorb it, every time, for their entire career. And that is why the person earning $200,000 and the person earning $80,000 are often separated by less financial security than either of them would like to admit. Subscribe to Tom Explains Money if you want the next breakdown. I'll see you there.